Guess where you just got into? Cool guy zone.
Hi. Inside this silicone is one of these guys. A little what's it? We're going to pull this guy out. We're going to flip it over, and we're going to take the monster clay slab on the bottom, put it on the other side, and then pour the second part of our two-part silicone mold into the monster clay. I have been toiling behind the scenes this whole time. We're going to get into that later. It only took overnight to cure all the way. It was still a little sticky on the top here, and also like a little, it didn't really cure all the way on the edge here where I kind of spilled a little bit. On the paper it's cure though. All right, so we're going to crack into this. I'm going to, as carefully as I can, remove the back. Here, this is something. A little spade. All right, let's just use this. So I do want to keep the seams if I can, or at least remove material along them. So all I have to do is kind of clay weld this panel onto the other side to support the other half when I fill it with silicone. Also, I have to decide where I'm going to place the spout. Spout, I think it's considered a spout. What I'm going to pour, or at what point I'm going to pour the resin, introduce the resin into the mold cavity that it's going to fill. Facehugger. The only issue with that is because of this, the thin spidery legs of the piece. Oh, you know what? Might be easier. I'm not going to be able to, I don't know why I'm treating this like it's made of a solid material. I might need to dismantle no, in fact, I am going to have to dismantle the box and then just put it back together. I'm not gonna sit here and just excavate my little action figure out of this. So go ahead and take the easy route and take it apart. Not cut any silicone. Not cut any silicone. Yeah, there it is. There's a silicone mold in it. Very. Some rigid silicone. Oh yeah. Okay. It's kind of, look. Really just peel it out. Okay. I'm gonna peel the sides off very carefully. And I gotta take the backing off slowly because when I put this together, I built up the base of the box around. I don't want to move it too much out of its original positioning, so it's just easier to pop back into place. That's pretty cool, man. Not gonna lie. Here, hold on. Pretty cool. Solid. Just gonna take some isopropyl to the sides after the second part's poured. Clean up the silicone and the moment we've all been waiting for. So the way I embedded the facehugger in this clay, the facehugger is gonna come out with it. I know that. So it's my concern is placing it back in. Sticking to the silicone a little bit. Oh, Mr. Clay. That was stuck on the. Ah, wow. That's so cool. It's kind of hard to see the amount of detail that the silicone picked up. A little closer with a little more light. Like, I know my lighting is terrible, but it picked up everything. And it's totally cured. No gooey, no putty, no drippy, nothing. I do have to go in and clean the clay out of it with isopropyl. But that's success right there, man. I was so scared because I've been watching videos on this stuff forever and just never actually doing it myself. And one of the things that I see happen all the time is you'll get these like freak chemical reactions where one material from one company and another material from another company that from other manufacturers they completely meld and no problem and there's no weird chemical reaction or adverse reaction or whatever. And then other times I've seen gallons of silicone and resin just get wasted because of a chemical reaction that it wasn't unanticipated and they couldn't have possibly known. So all of that was running through my head for the first time doing this. And got a fun little mold out of it. It's going to do a little bit of cleanup work. And then we're going to get right back to it. Before I put anything in this, there's all kinds of little monster clay specks. Silicone, and that's no good. Got to get rid of that. So excited. I finally got to work with silicone after watching people do it for years. I'll admit, as excited as I was, and as much as I love watching the process of someone do this, it was intimidating. It was intimidating because I see the level, the skill level, and the quality of work that the makers that are doing this kind of stuff do. So I was like, oh, well, I'm just gonna, and this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. All that work putting this guy in the clay. Oh yeah, there we go. Wow. It was in there for a really long time. Oh wow, you can actually see where just the tiniest bit of silicone slipped in underneath the tail. One's a little more action figure-y, one's a little more screen accurate. So I'm going to use the more fun, interactive looking one for the one that's going to be the animatronic, and the more screen accurate one is going to be the one that's there on my face. Oh, also, what I mentioned earlier, I have to decide how we're introducing resin into this. I think I started talking about it earlier, but I completely got sidetracked. The problem herein is that I got all these legs, these tiny little sewing needle thick legs, this tiny little prop. I'm worried about resin not finding its way into all of these little guys. So the easiest way to determine and to ensure that the resin goes into all of them is to have the resin be introduced to the mold from the tail and with some kind of plunger actually forced into the mold to the tip of each finger. At the tip of each finger is going to be just a wire thick line out of the mold. And as long as I see 8 beads of resin pop out of the back of the mold where I put those pin needles or pinpoints, I'll know every single leg got filled with resin. You know what I could do? I could lay. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna cut a piece of paper clip to length from the tip, the finger, and then bending, and then to the top. Right, so it's gonna be bent and then bent. Tape it to the outside of here. If it stays in place, able to place all of them. Then yeah, I'll have a escape. Yeah, I'll have an escape. Saved all the clay slabs. And let's get a tool. Pick a tool, any tool. Just gonna trace out. I just bought all these tools, but you know what works great? A steel ruler. Tried and true. Kinda. Yo, anybody else suddenly want pizza? No, just me. And it's just going around the edges and kneading the 2 pieces and then blending them with the warmth and friction of my thumb. Suppose if you wanted to be a badass about it, you could just heat up a wood burner. Ironically, this whole mold making process has been the easiest part of this whole builds process so far. Everything outside of this has been the sometimes annoying task of acquiring the right materials you think you might need for something you've never made before, and planning and designing and redesigning and seeing something on YouTube that you didn't think of and will definitely work for your purposes, and then redesigning everything to apply to the. Yeah, this is fun. This is me playing with Play-Doh, essentially. One thing I noticed when I finished pouring the first half of this mold's silicone was that the monster clay was not uniformly level around the edge somehow, even though I know I cut every slab to the same width. So yeah, I don't know what happened there. So, how are you? That feels pretty solid to me. Just just do the same thing for the other side. Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, the only thing I have to make sure is that the box isn't gonna pull away from the silicone in there, and I'm just gonna waste a whole bunch of rubber. So I'm gonna line the inside there, the interior, with just a little bit of a clay kind of gasket almost. Start with a bigger one, and I'm just gonna lightly smush the clay. I've also got my finger behind the silicone to stop the tool from pushing the clay away from the silicone, but also like smash into place. The general idea of what I want to accomplish. Just make sure there's a seal in between the clay wall and the silicone wall. I don't want silicone pouring down the sides around the already cured silicone from last time and creating a seal. Seal. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. I need something to put on this silicone so when I pour the new silicone, they don't just bond and forever encase my facehugger in silicone. Well, I did mention that, didn't I? That it might be a problem because I manipulated parts of the pose of this maquette to just be kind of how I wanted them to be. And now it's not naturally resting in the mold the way I set it in the mold. Popping out in some spots. I think I can get all the fingies to stay where they are. But the tail is trying to escape. Well, lesson learned. If you're making a copy of something that's a little out of shape, you can't fix it by trying to straighten it in a silicone mold. That's not how that's going to work. Because then you have to do that. It's so silly, but it worked. So I clipped little pieces of the ends of paper clips, and I created little just brackets to pierce into one side of the silicone and then across into the other to keep this maquette facehugger from popping out. I'm going a little rogue, and my little seep spouts are going to be coming out of the side of the mold, just because that's an easier way for me to position this part. I want this paper clip to be in the clay just until it makes contact with the end of the digit that I'm assigning it to. All right, I don't really know what else to do except hit this with some mold release and pour some silicone. So, right, pour spout kind of planned. Registration keys, I have a couple. Just make sure the whole thing looks sealed. I'm not going to have any silicone pour out all over onto my floor from anywhere. Let's put you to the side. Oh no. Math again. I didn't record how much silicone I actually used. I'm just going to do 40 and 40. I think that might be okay. That sounds kind of okay to me. So what did I say? 40 milliliters? 40 milliliters. Just a hair under. Come on. Fluoropolymers such as PTFE. These are popular choice for mold release. I think that's the spray stuff I see everybody using. Polysiloxanes. Mold release agents are typically applied by spraying them onto the substrate or housing. I need to hit the housing. So I thought, can you use Vaseline? Vaseline and baby powder, as long as you get the entire surface coated. Any type of mold release will work. Vaseline and baby powder are frequently recommended for use as mold release, as those are products that most people either already have or can easily get for fairly cheap at their local stores. So I have baby powder, body powder. Is there a difference? Talcum, right? Oh, a bunch of you guys liked my story. Thanks. All right, I gotta find baby powder. Hold on. I got Vaseline. I'm gonna just dab this on with a brush, right? Right? Yeah, why not? It seems like the easiest way to, or the most efficient way to get it to cover everything that I want to cover with it. The idea is to get it on everything. All the silicone surface needs to get covered in this crap. Otherwise, the silicone is just going to bond to the silicone, and then all I have done is spent all this time to encase a scaled facehugger action figure in a block of silicone. So I'll try to go from one side to the other so we don't lose track of where I am. I'm not too keen on the smell of Vaseline, but I don't think I could watch one more Steady Craft and Craftsman video or Rob Jerome video without trying this for myself. I don't remember what the exact working time on this was, but I didn't even come close to running out of time last time. And I was working with twice as much material, so I'm not setting a timer. I got enough timers in my life during the day outside of the shop. Okay, from a high pour. High-ish. Row. Did I not mix enough? Did I do it again? I did it again. Oh no. Really need to mix more on the fly. I think I do. I think I even have a level somewhere. Oh no, silicone. I lost some silicone. No! I wasn't paying attention. I lost some silicone. Silicone is fun, but it is messy. Really, really messy and gooey. I don't like how it feels. Got a weird. I mean, it's silicone, so it's got crazy viscosity, and I'm not. Ugh. Luckily, I didn't get it completely everywhere, and the mold is like up to the brim. So, mission accomplished. That was cool. Part B, part 2 of the 2-part mold is done. The next time you see that sucker on screen will be I would very much like to be casting something out of it the next time you guys see it, the next time I mess with it. I already got the smooth cast. I didn't get any like pigment for the smooth cast or anything. I guess I could. I guess I should. It's just like white, like basic white plastic. But what I need to talk about next, though, is the actual prop. Well, not actual prop, but like the crawling one first. I guess we'll talk about. Remember this guy? Remember him? That's what's left of it. Yeah. Kind of went a little nuts. And for some reason, I decided to just remove every bit of unnecessary plastic for the moment that I could, just to get a better idea of how everything kind of rests and sits and how the shell works. And yeah, I got all that information. So really didn't need to do all this, but it was a nice way of tearing it down. So I could better plan out how I want some of these components to go back together. So we got a rechargeable battery, we got the little sound module, which I would like to experiment with if there's time. We have less than 4 weeks to finish this, so we'll see. It's got a couple of LED lights that I might switch out for motors of some kind, and it even came with collision sensors. So the motor can alternate, which is awesome. The input can make it crawl that way or can make it crawl that way. Crawls on these wheels, input from the motor. And what I have been doing this whole time, hold on, let me move some crap around. Don't worry about that. Or that. You have no idea. You have no idea what's been going on behind the scenes. It's been 1 week since you looked at me. No, it's been longer than that, actually. But I don't know, you may have noticed the wall of Facehugger. That is my little reference spot. So, just the plan is to kind of, I think I've talked about this. I'm going to reconstruct this a little bit using the core of everything, basically really just the motor and the wheels. Chassis and all that, whatever else you want to call it, is going to have to be kind of rebuilt from the ground up, which is I wasn't planning on having to do that, but if it's what I got to do to make the prop work, it's what I got to do. so I'm prepared to do that. I guess it's basically making a toy. But what I wanted to do initially was give this thing facehugger legs. And first session we ever did of this build was spent getting reference material and the outline. The other thing I didn't really go over, I didn't record it or live stream it, is my favorite way to my favorite way to test if some kind of mechanism that I'm making for a prop, as long as it's pretty basic, only one or two actions, poster board and like either Chicago screws like I use, or push pins, or cardstock, like making actual. Is this one solid? Hold on. Making a 2D proof of concept, right? Yeah. And how that starts, or where that starts, I should say, is with the mechanics that are given to me. I draw out all the pieces onto a piece of paper. Granted, you can do all this in a computer. You don't need to draw anything. You can, scan it or pick the shapes, or is a lot easier and a lot more environmentally friendly compared to using, dozens of sheets of printer paper to alter designs. But this was the first successful one, finally, after actually functioned really cool. Like, they actually put some clever design into this. I'm sure it's from something else, but still, like, whatever they did. This whole assembly, I don't really need to change anything. I'm taking the legs, the legs assembly, so this arm and the pairs of legs in between each, and I'm splitting it, or duplicating it rather, and I'm creating an axis on an axle on either side to have 3 legs on each. So it's widening it, and it's going to keep this input and this drive and this point just with different hardware going to a different action. And all of those original mechanics are what's going to drive the monstrosity that I'm going to turn it into. And this proof of concept is using the same measurements as the physical piece. So if I put this in designer software to see if it actually functions, I should get the same exact results using the same exact measurements. I had to learn a lot. I had to look up how levers and gear ratios work. So that was fun. A little self-enlightening there. It was nice. The one thing I realized about that particular design, though, it was too big, it was too bulky, and it was too high off the ground. And what I mean by that rather, is if you look at the Alien movies, if you watch the Alien movies, the facehuggers tend to walk off the ground. I thought their bellies were a little more low to the ground, kind of like like spiders. But no, they're kind of more like this. They're kind of up. So the design had to change a lot in order to get this guy to not be noticeable on the ground. I would have had to mold these wheels, recast them in clear resin, and choose a resin that'll actually be good for that kind of part and that kind of tension and weight, and then also to support all of this, and then cast every single other part that's going to be visible underneath the facehugger in invisible resin. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. It's going to look silly to have this guy just floating off the ground and have like a motor box guiding him along. So I figured for the sake of IRL realism compared to screen accuracy, we're going to go with what's going to look best in real life. And what's going to look best in real life is not this. This was the next design after that. I scaled it down to be more close to the maquette that this one's based on. And I didn't like it because it's so high off the ground. Like, I know it doesn't look like a lot, but this is the profile of it. It's going to be coming straight at you. You're going to see these two arms, going like this, but you're also going to see this giant, granted clear, but still, it's going to be a big gearbox on the ground underneath this thing. So what I ultimately decided with was the third iteration, which I only just finished yesterday. This one involves the facehugger being closer to the ground with shorter mechanism. The leg is going to be a little more down instead of like arced upward, It'd be a little flatter. But I think that might add to the creepy factor, because this thing is going to be jittering along, right? It's going to be going along the floor just as fast as the toy crab did, and I'm not really adding much material, so it should be able to keep the same speed that it did, even on the slower setting that it has. And so there's going to be just 6 of these legs in alternating motions, going along with the motion of the momentum of the toy. So like, I've been visualizing it this whole time, and this setup from what's going to make you think about if it's real out of the corner of your eye or at first glance more. It high off the ground with the giant wheel possibly visible, ruining the illusion, or a smaller assembly closer to the ground with no real visual indication that it's fake. I think that's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be creepy. I'm also going to try to quiet it. This thing clacks around like crazy, but it's really all the it's the plastic on plastic that you're hearing. This thing is also so unstable. I removed a couple screws that I shouldn't have, but it would have kept it wider than I wanted it to be, and I really wanted to get a good idea. Not a good idea. I wanted to see if I could save the chassis part at least. I can't. Just the how thick the body is going to be and where it's going to be in relation to the rest of it. Oh well, I guess no, because this is going to be kind of like the center of the face of it. I mean, with the design being closer to the ground like that. This is just a placeholder for what the body's going to actually look like, but no, I'm going to have to, no. I'm basically not going to be able to save any of this except the motor and the rest of the electronics. Everything else must go. But that's not a problem. This is not going to be the first thing that I've had to make like a chassis kind of deal for. Oh, before I forget, this is what it's going to look like with both sides. I know it's kind of hard to tell with the mechanical pencil lines, but that's how I draw these initially, and then I move into ink before I scan it into a computer or anything. These are the segments of the leg that I determined I like the dimensions of, the lengths and whatever. This is essentially what the leg is. Like, it's probably going to be styrene with like this whole shape will be cut out in styrene, and then probably a piece of like armature wire for just stability, and then the rest of it's just gonna be EVA foam, and then probably this point and this point are gonna be on like an ABS plastic shaft kind of deal, and then I'm using 3 segments of 3mm stainless steel rod as the new assembly axles. And then for the casing and not the casing, but like the structure of the body and everything to like hold everything together, nothing's gonna go flying apart. Just gonna use sheets of ABS plastic, nothing fancy, nothing crazy hard, or it doesn't need to be. I do need it to be lightweight though, but I also need it to be able to be stacked and glued together and potentially tapped with like a small M3 screw if I double it up. Yeah. So that's where I've been. That's what I've been doing. I've been messing around with this in the background. This is the above of the design. And these are all like the 4th and 5th editions of these designs. That's why it took me so long. I had to redraw it, and I had to fine tune, and I had to nitpick as to what design I really wanted to go after. And I really couldn't decide if I wanted to maintain screen accuracy or go for practicality of the prop and its functionality. And so that's why, in the end, I decided to go with 2. We're making 2 completely different facehuggers from different scales, from different maquettes. The crawling one, I'm using the more stylized maquette. That's going to be this guy from Figma. Came with the Figma Big Chap. It's just a little more stylized, looks a little more illustrated compared to the more screen accurate one, which is just, it's, you know, it's creepy, but without any kind of context, it's boring. But when it's on your face and it looks real, then, you know, different story. But this is what essentially the body of it is going to look like. I need to make a frame that's going to be able to contain all this stuff. Each one of the existing points in, or on rather, the toy are going to be repurposed for each one of the legs. And like I said, this central assembly here, this zigzag and alternating lengths of legs to simulate crawling, I'm going to divide into 2. So I'm basically just recreating the assembly, having it, and yeah, having it only face one way instead of going both. And the input from this is still going to the actions are just translating to different points. It's not, you know, not doing anything too crazy. Let me move this 2D placeholder real quick. Like that's kind of what a rough design of what the forward-facing profile looks like. But yeah, this took so much trial and error, and I'm sure I could have done it, you know, not even a little, but significantly faster on a computer. I just don't have the time and energy to learn a new software and try to stay active with all of this other stuff. So this is what I wound up doing because this is what I know how to do. And I actually really like this process. It's intimate. You get to know the ins and outs of everything you're working with instead of, you know, looking at it for the first time physically. So I don't know. It's preference. It's all up to preference. It has nothing to do with which way is better. There is some efficiency involved, obviously, but a difference in efficiency. But yeah, that's where we're at. Before I cut any plastic, I just need to decide exactly where that extra assembly is going to be, where the leverage is going to come from. Would it be easier to just have each leg have its own little axle and have its own arm attached to it? I'm not sure. Yeah. all I do know is that I do need to adjust this point because I can't have it right here in the middle. I mean, I could, but it's going to be too much to have an arm come out to this, to one point, and then bend outward to this point to another axle. It's like I'm going above and beyond. If I'm going to go through that, I might as well have it do a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a couple other little animations that I have been toying with. So the eyes of the original toy had these little LEDs in them, right? So they're getting a signal. The LEDs, they're coded to flash. I don't know if it's the LEDs themselves. I don't think it's the LEDs themselves. I hope actually it's the chip telling them to do that. If not, my idea is not going to work. But I want to figure out a way to use those existing contacts, essentially for the forward-facing mandible fingers, fronty grabby fingers. And so, while the other 6 legs are doing this and kind of dodging around doing stuff, I want the 2 front legs to be doing this, really coming at you. Totally different cycle of animation, different movement, so it looks as erratic and vicious and chaotic as it does in the movies and the games. The other thing I wanted to do, like I said, I started doing a lot of research into like gear ratios. I didn't know I was gonna have to learn any of this stuff, but I found some really cool tutorials, and I found assemblies that I didn't even know existed. I can design a way for the tail to even have a little bit of animation involved, and it's going to use existing input from the motor anyway. Like I'm not adding tension. The only tension that is being added is, splitting this into 2 and creating 2 assemblies. It's going to double the workload that this little motor has to do. It doesn't seem to struggle all that much as it is. I'm still gonna have to do some weight tests at some point eventually, though. But the axis coming out. Let's see. So the actual input from the motor is gonna have to be pushed up a little bit away from the wheelhouse thing, but the axle of the wheelhouse that isn't, it's spinning. It's free, like, it's being held in place, kind of like a wheel well, but the actual little stainless steel peg is spinning freely the whole time in there. So I figured I can build off of that, fabricate a flexible facehugger tail around a already kind of whirled wire, not curled, but like just wavy wire, but like almost in a very spread out spiral, and have it rotate. But it's going to be inside the tail, so the tail essentially is just going to be a skin over whatever wire I have attached to a motor that's going to be spinning. And so if you have it in a sleeve, it's essentially just going to be doing this, like whipping around while it's coming at you. Everything on this thing is going to move, except the weird little lung pouches. I'm not messing with that. That's a whole nother. Nope. I don't have I'm sure I could just get a couple little motor servos to just do this, but I don't need to. It only does that when it's on somebody's face anyway, and the one that's going on my face is not going to have any animatronics. The only thing I might do with the facehugger is I might make a silicone what do you call it? It's the part of it's the delivery system of the facehugger. The only thing I can see myself doing is carving that out of monster clay and making a cast of it in silicone and having that kind of wiggle around when I take it off my face, but I don't, that might be too far. Not that this channel is monetized, but I don't know how they feel about me making, just silicone appendages of any kind. So I can't get into cutting plastic today, but I'm stoked that I finally got the second half of the mold poured. I've been waiting on that for a while. Oh, I almost completely forgot, and I took it out for that exact reason. Putting the mechanical facehugger aside, the animatronic. Can you call it an animatronic? I mean, technically, right? Technically, I'm modifying an animatronic. That's cool. Add that to my resume. 35 years of the one on my face, I want it to be posable. Yeah. And there's gonna be probably like like clear elastic in between each fingers that's gonna help it stay on my face. But I want each leg to be free and posable. Well, how are you gonna do that? It's gonna be a static prop for the most part, covered in tissue and latex and neoprene and EVA foam layers and all this. It's going to be really light, but how am I going to make it pose? Well, I had talked about in the last discussion about designing this that I wanted it to be rigid enough to, I don't know, just not break easily. So, talked about using PVC last time, and I'm still on board with that. Still going to use PVC or mostly CPVC with maybe some 1/2-inch PVC bored out so it can fit this telescopically. But I think I talked about these already, but I found these things, and I've seen them used elsewhere, but I never really understood their functionality until I saw Adam Savage's crazy ass make LED mounts with these. And essentially what they are is they're flexible pipe, right? Is the best way I can describe it. It's a pain in the ass to pull apart and get together, push back together, which is also perfect. Let me get a smaller piece as an example. This stuff, like it's essentially a pipe of ball and socket joints. Like it's just you can just, it's awesome. I loved this crap as a kid, and I love it even more as an adult because now I get to make cool shit with it, right? So what I'm thinking is, well, that might be good for, the first half of the tail or something to make completely out of that stuff. But what about each individual knuckle? Well, I mean, does this remind you of anything? All right, a little weird looking socket thing. Do I have a picture handy? I almost always have reference material handy. Rip it off the wall. So if you look at the segments at the knuckles of each of the facehugger, it almost looks like a ball and socket joint, right? Okay, but what about the thickness? Well, these essentially are all just the same piece connected to each other. What if you split it and reshaped it to be as thin as the facehugger leg, which coincidentally is pretty darn close to a 1/2-inch CPVC. So my plan is, and hear me out, the plan is to cut this in half. Right, so I have the receiving end and the giving end, the ball and socket, male and female end, whatever. Cut it in half. I have one end and the other end. And then I'm going to use this, put on that, and one going out of that. Mold them separately with PVC coupling in it, right? So the piece that I cast will be able to coupling into another piece of CPVC, and I only have to destroy one of these to make all 6 and in resin, just to recast them myself, just to have just the part for myself. I'm going to modify this to act as a knuckle for the facehugger, and this thing's got pretty good range of posability. So I'm pretty sure as long as I get the width of the body right and it doesn't go past my face, it should be able to bend all of its weird little fingers around my head pretty convincingly. And then also be able to be posed in an action pose when I'm not wearing it on my face. So like the functionality, that's like my biggest thing with making any of the stuff that I make, is like I love functionality. I love moving. I love just anything I can do to make it interactable. That's the word. I want people to be able to interact with it. I want to let people hold the thing that I made and pose it and play with it, and then, so yeah, I can't just make something static. I don't think I ever could. The static stuff that I've made are my least favorite. So if it's got a moving jaw or moving ears or moving arms or a moving part, I am so much more enthusiastic about it. And can you blame me? So the only other thing is with, as far as cutting ABS, you may be able to tell that the stuff's pretty chewed up. That is because the only thing I have to cut any kind of plastics is the handy dandy jeweler saw. Yeah, this is what I've cut everything out of so far. I did get a little hand hobby tool saw that has like a blade for metal, because I am going to have to cut these stainless steel rod to act as the second axis that the second assembly is going to leverage off of. But I mean, everything's laid out. Like, the only thing I've really been that's a lie, procrastinating on, is getting tired of drawing the same thing over and over again, which I finally am. So now I can actually work on the physical fabrication of some of this stuff. Not all of it, but some of it. I've been going for about 3.5 hours today. So I'm thinking I'm going to pick this back up as soon as I possibly can, now that second part of the mold is curing. I have a little bit of something, at least being worked on in the background simultaneously with this other thing. The build kind of has to be done parallel with the other. So the animatronic kind of has to be built at the same pace, if I can help it, as the prop. Yeah. Everything seems to be pretty planned out. On paper, both should be done. I'm gonna make a schedule and try to plan it out, just to set some not deadlines. Let's call them progress points. I'm gonna set up a basic schedule with some ambitious progress points, and we'll just try to stay on that between now and Samhain, Halloween. We shall see. I work better under pressure anyway. All right, thank you so much for stopping by. As always, I appreciate you and the few of you that checked me out while I was live streaming and popped in to say hi. Thank you so much. Hello again. And I hope you all are doing well wherever you're at. I do have a tendency to
fall off the face of the earth for a week or two every now and again, but that's usually because I'm working on something or procrastinating. So sorry. I don't know how regular of a YouTuber I'm gonna be, or how dependable of a live streamer I'm gonna be, but yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll probably see you tomorrow.